appreciated for this training session on Earshot Distro. So thanks for joining. My name is Barry Rook. I'm the Executive Director at the National Campus and Community Radio Association. The session that's happening right now is Earshot Distro for artists and musicians. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the music industry and sector related to campus and community radio here in Canada. I've got a brief outline which I'd like to go through. It will, first of all, talk a little bit about who we are, what is Distro, how to use Distro, best practices, and then getting more out of the station process as well. So we'll go through some of those tips in the next little bit. So to get started, a little bit about who we are. My name, again, is Barry Rook. I'm the Executive Director. We have two others that are currently heavily involved in our learning and development side of things. Luke is with us and works on the broadcast side of things. So he deals with all the radio stations and them using the system. I work with all of the artists, the music associations, and the industry when it comes to the distro side of things as well, hence why I'm presenting to you. And then Peter is our marketing and outreach director who looks after our social media and some of our help processes. So those are the three main contacts you might run into. Overall, the National Campus and Community Radio Association has 113 nonprofits. We're all across the country, absolutely independent, so we can't mandate them to use the system. About 75 of those are signed up to use the system and actively use the system. For you wondering, we have a station. I know most of the group here is from Saskatchewan. We have a station in Regina and in Saskatoon. I don't believe there's another station in the province, but I'd have to double check. It's hard to remember all 113 and where they're all located. Typically, stations have staff or volunteers that oversee content. This is often a music director and or a collection of volunteers that look after the input process. And it's often the case, especially in campus radio, where independent hosts are the ones that select what music is being played. So submitting your content to a radio station doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get it into the hands of the right person. And that's part of why this system that we've developed and some of the structures and so on that we're going to share over the next 45 minutes or so outline why you should be contacting hosts and how you can get a hold of them. So that's a little bit about the sector as a whole. As you can see, there's a list here right now of where these radio stations are located across the country. And there's a variety of different stations in the area as well. So I believe there's actually three yes, we have a third station in Saskatchewan, which is an Indigenous licensed station called Creek FM. There's also a station in Gravelbow, which is French language as well. And then there's it appears as though there's another independent one who is not part of one of our associations. This list of station IDs and logos that you're seeing right now on the presentation, these are all stations that have signed up to use the system and are either actively involved or have access, not only them, but also their music directors and some of their staff members as well. This is available on our website, and we'll tell you how to get in contact with them later on, so don't worry about that. The other thing I wanted to sort of showcase and highlight is this idea of copyright tariffs, and I just want to remind you that sending music to radio stations might also result in you, if you get plays, you may be getting funding opportunities from SOCAN if you're registered for SOCAN. So we highly recommend you do. How this sort of works is the artist creates the song. In our system, there's a small fee to use the Earshot distro. We have to be able to run it, and that's why we've got 3 staff and then technology and the drivings. It's not very much. We'll come back to that in a bit. And if you're part of Saskatchewan Music, Sask Music, we'll make sure that you get a copy of your free uploads, which are good until the end of March as well. The radio stations obviously receive that music, put it on the air, and in turn, we pay copyright tariffs to a variety of different tariff holders. The main one is SOCAN. 1.9% of our total expenses go to SOCAN, and that pool of funds is then distributed back to the artists and the musicians that have their music registered that has been played. So there's a tracking period. It's typically 2 weeks during the year, in which SOCAN tracks content from each of our stations, and then they extrapolate that over the year and pay people out for it. It's not nearly what the value is of getting on commercial radio, but it's still something, and a couple of people have made a nice little penny off of it as well. We're actively trying to get SOCAN to change their structure so that they're reporting 24/7, 365. It's a lot more fair for the artists to know that if you got played, you're going to get paid for that process. So we're actively involved in that. The distro landscape, we've got some competitors. There's some costs I talked about, Earshot Charts and Factor, and the importance of getting on to both of those areas and where we're at now and what's sort of to come. So there's sort of three main ways in which artists are sending content to the radio stations. One is they're mailing in CDs. And you might recognize the manufacturing, mailing, content processing, archival system here for quite an antiquated process. Many stations don't accept CDs. Many stations are not accepting CDs during COVID, also because they don't have any staff or volunteers in the stations, so they're building up. This is one of the reasons why we've really pushed Earshot Distro. Some stations still do want CDs, so they're on a kind of a case-by-case basis, and I'll tell you where you can get the information on what station wants CDs and what doesn't later on in the process. Also to note, very, very generalized numbers. 80% of CDs that make it to a station are rejected and don't make it into a new release library or their main archive. It's just they get so much. It's not quite the content they're looking for. They don't have enough time to process it, or various other reasons. It's broken. So keep that in mind. And then of that 20%, half of it makes it into the new release library, and then it would get tossed if it doesn't make it into the archives. And the other half sits in an archives on a shelf, in some cases with 50, 60,000 other CDs, and waits for someone to find it and rediscover it in their database, if they're even using that database. One of the reasons why CDs are not really the best way to go, let alone the fact that it's extremely expensive and really not very good economically or environmentally. There's also emails, of course. Sending an email into a station is a possibility. The problem with that, of course, is you're attaching emails, you're taking up a lot of server space. Many stations don't want MP3s. Often it's a link to a pay option. If it's a link to Bandcamp or YouTube or SoundCloud, technically and legally speaking, that's not a legal distribution platform, and radio stations and their hosts can't play from it. It doesn't apply to what they call broadcast rights, is the short form of it. So you have to be given it, but you have to be given it in a way that allows you to have those broadcasting rights, and the system automatically does that, plus a couple more. I also wrote down here DMDS or Yangaroo. They've been around for quite a few years. They're mostly focused on the commercial sector, though we do have a dozen or so stations that use this system to receive content. Pretty pricey. Could run you anywhere between $500 and $1,000 to reach campus stations in Canada. Play MPE entered the market about a year ago. Slightly less known, slightly less used, and also slightly lower in the price point, but still in the hundreds to try to service a single or an album. Cost point to us, a little different. For us, it's $50 an album, Canadian, $7 a song before any discounts. There's a referral code, which we'll be giving you at the end of this. If you haven't already got it from Sask Music, you can get a copy of that here. And there's also coupons. So the referral code is like a sign-up bonus. You get 25% off your first 10 uploads, 5% ever after, and it remains on your platform. And if you signed up under an organization, they also get the bonus tagged onto their account. And then coupons are just essentially your coupon and your discounts, which you do right at payout, and they could be either song genre specific or whatnot. And as I said, Sask Music does have part of our Maple Grant program, and I will be sharing those coupons out again here. We'll just double check to make sure we're okay. I believe Brittany's on the line here, and that's who I should be chatting with about that. And that will give you free upload access until the end of March for this system. Perfect. The other things I want to chat about really quickly are the Earshot Charts. So we've been running a national charting system since 2005. The charts are submitted to by about 25 or 30 radio stations across the country on a weekly basis. They're compiled together, put into a national chart. And the reason you want to get on the charts is that Factor actually uses the charting system as a way to acknowledge where you are in your life cycle and for granting possibilities. So you may get bumped up a classification if you get on the national charts. Plus, it's really neat to see yourself on the national charts, and there's a way to be able to promote and use that as benefits there. So we'll tell you a little bit more about that. We're also in the process of trying to automate the charting system in SOCAN. As I mentioned earlier, it's only 2 weeks a year. We want to be able to cover that 24/7, 365, along with the charting system, so we can capture the 180 or so radio stations in the sector all at once. So it's almost instant and on demand. Those are all challenges that we're working towards in the next year or two, but hopefully something that we're going to have some success with. As I mentioned, there's the charts is earshot-online.com, similar to earshot-distro.ca, and they are updated every week and so on. And I did a review of the top 200 songs for 2020, and 75% of those songs were Canadian. So a lot of Canadian content on there, and a great way to be able to do that. So that's earshot-online.com if you want to see what's the charts in that are out right now. To continue on, we'll jump into where we're at with this system. It's been developed a couple of years ago, and we sort of really formally launched it this past fall. There's close to 7,800 songs on the system, and they're uploading songs on a day-to-day basis. About 200 songs a week we're getting uploaded to the system. So there's a lot of content going on there. It does have access to the French language stations. We do plan to have an upgrade to our French and Spanish language uses on there so that they can get access to it. And we're hoping to expand into the States and beyond in the fall. There's another interesting access point to this, is that there's the ability to allow podcasters to use music. And we have been in touch with Library and Archives Canada, allowing the content that goes into the system to be added to the National Archives. Not something that's in place yet, but hopefully something down the road. It'll be easy to upload here and be automatically added based on your wishes to the National Archives, which they're busy focusing on a few other areas like movies and books at the moment, but music is on their list of things to do. So I'm going to take you through a little tour of the distro system itself, the upload process, the reviews and the ratings, the genres, communications, and admin tools. The website earshot-distro.ca is the account to go to. The first pages that you see there are a WordPress splash page that tells you all about the system, the costs. We offer a full service option, so if you don't want to do any of the work, you can send us the files and the info, and we'll upload it for you and add additional $5 per song. Some posters. There's a FAQ process in here. It tells you who our supporters are. We have this referral program. Most of you are involved in the Maple program. If you want to volunteer, you can volunteer and help us out with this. There's things like reviews that you can do. We have some shows that you can be involved in and so on. So every once in a while, we've got a group of reviewers that go in, grab content from the system, do reviews, post it here, post it on charts, post it to our members so they get access to see it. We also send a weekly news blast of all the latest albums that are uploaded to our members so that they can see that there's new content out. There's a list of radio stations. There's also a show here which we run, which is called Earshot Daily. It's a 30-minute radio show featuring only content from the Distro platform or from our charts platform. Anybody who wants to host a radio show can go ahead and do it. We have a coordinator who will help you with the language and the imaging and all that kind of stuff. You put together a show that's 28 minutes long, and it's syndicated on about 10 radio stations across the country right now. So it's a great way to get your content out there. If you want to give a shot at hosting a show, we'll help you on doing that. You can also go to the site there and hit the request option and send a request in. And that's usually a very good way because AJ, who oversees it, does a few of those shows. And he will also go ahead and put you on the show in the upcoming bit. So there's about 200 or so shows that have happened since last July right now. We do have a training and support page. The big one is the music industry side of things. It has a 16 or 17 page document walking you through the process I'm about to go through with you. So there's a great way to be able to see if there's any missed information. So I suggest you go back there. There's some of the tips that we've suggested as well in our presentation and some other contact points. So if you have some issues, you can reach out to us and contact us there. We're on the various social media side of things and so on. So you can always follow along. Instagram and Facebook are our two big ones. And we do a song of the day and an artist of the week. Also something you can request to be on. But if you're uploading to the system here, we try to capture what's been uploaded to the system and then give you a shout out every once in a while. If you haven't signed up, your sign up process is here. Very simply put, you will click sign up. It'll take you to the different options. If you are a record label or distributor, you want to sign up using that system. That's essentially the only difference between that and the independent artist is one can allow you to have multiple artists. The other is a single artist. So just for simplicity, it's really up to you to decide how you want to sign up for it. If you really need to, I can change you back and forth, but that's not overly important there. I'm going to skip the sign up process, but when you do the sign up, that's where you put that referral code in that we're going to give you later. So go ahead and when you do the sign up, wait for that code till we get to the end. Don't do that now. I'm going to log in and I'm going to show you quickly in the next 15 minutes or so how the system itself works and actually upload some of the content as well. So if I log in, this is your landing page for your dashboard. It will show you the number of searchable songs that you have, any songs that need to be paid to be searchable, a list of all of your artists, a list of any of those recent interactions they have, how many songs that are available. You can view their song list and you can edit their artist profile. The recent interactions is clickable. So this says 2. So if I click and go here, I can see that the station NCRA listened to a song called You and downloaded them, just a few moments before we got started. And we can see that there's a download, a listen, and no supports for a total of 2 interactions. So looking at the data here, we can see that somebody listened to it. And if they only listened to it and they didn't download it, most likely they've passed on the song because they obviously don't have a way to get a copy of it. If they've downloaded it, you can almost relatively conclude that they've taken the song and they're putting it into their library or a future show or something of that nature. And if they click the support button, they're sort of telling you straight up that, yeah, they're going to be supporting this song and playing it on the air. So this is your interactive tool to see who is doing what and where. And then again, it gives you a station identifier. And you would then go to the messaging and outreach button, which we'll come back to later, and then look to contact that station if you want to do some follow-up with them as well. Note that at the moment, this dashboard only shows who in the last 7 days. We're going to be expanding that in our next update to remain permanently, so it does disappear at the moment, but we're trying to get that fixed, just to let you know there. If you want to, you have your account settings in which you're able to change your name, your password, anything of that information. You also have organizational settings, which allows you to add other people into the system if you want to have multiple people managing and uploading your content. So this is a great way to say, if you are a label, you can send this to a staff member who's uploading for it, or you can send it directly to the artist, and the artist can then upload and create their own artist account and all of that kind of stuff if you want to manage it all in one space. I'm going to go back to the dashboard and outline the upload process. There's two ways to do this. You can use the step-by-step process, which is what I'm going to show you, or you can kind of build it by using the song, artist, and release buttons on the top. If you start the upload process one way and then you stop, that's where you can sort of pick it all up. It'll make a lot more sense once I go through it. So I click upload songs. Very simply, what it asks you to do is to select an artist. Every time you have a new process happening, there's three things that you're doing. You're selecting an artist, you're selecting a release to attach the songs to. So those are your three big steps. I'm going to upload an Adam Nix song here. So I'm not going to create the artist, but I'll show you very quickly what that looks like. I'm going to jump to step 2 here. Now it's going to ask for a release. I'm going to create a new release here, and it's going to ask for information on the release. So today is Feb 24th. The artist is Adam. We're going to choose some cover art, and this is specifically for the release. So this would be the album cover art, not your artist cover art. That would go under the artist page. And you would pick a release type. This is the important part when it comes to your payment system. If you're planning to release a song, an album or songs with more than 8, you are best to select album or compilation. If you're going to do a single or a couple of songs that are less than 8, I would suggest selecting single or extended play. The only reason we have this in this process is it ties you to what your payment is. So if you have 2 songs under an EP, you'll see that it's $14. If you selected an album and uploaded 2 songs, well, you're going to run into a problem because you're going to get 2 songs and it's going to cost you $50. If it's okay, Graham, do you want to unmute and ask your question, and I'll try to answer really quickly? I think Graham had... Oh, no, Matthew, you're right. It was you, Matthew. Sorry, go ahead. It is your suggestion. I would say 7 or less. You can do the math. I think 7 times 8 is 56, so it would cost you some more. Yeah, so just pick what makes the most sense for you, and just acknowledging that if you select compilation and you only put 2 songs on the compilation, it's still going to charge you $50. You have a genre which you're required to select. I understand that there's a lot of cross-genre work going on, which is great. The CRTC requires radio stations to select a primary genre, so that's why we force you to select a main genre here. So if this is an electronic song, and then you get some other options for genres. I know it's a house song, and I know hyper genre, it's progressive house. If I search for electronic, I will find all the songs with house and progressive house under it. So don't worry about that. If I search just for progressive house, I'm only going to find progressive house on the broadcaster side of things. So the further down you go in this list, the better it is. If you come across a genre that's not on there, send us an email. We'll do our best to try to get it uploaded as well. So keep that in mind. Clear and clean context is related to language. We highly recommend that if you upload content, you upload both a clean radio version and an explicit version, and you write that in the title, but also use this here. Nothing worse than having some inappropriate language happen at 2:00 and the radio station getting in trouble because you didn't acknowledge that it did have it, and there's a good chance you'll get your song pulled pretty quickly. This portion here for city and region is related to, again, the release. So if you have multiple people on it, leave it at various and don't put a city in. If you put a city in, you have to select a province, or so to give you an error. System release date is the date in which this album or single becomes available to the radio stations. So if you want it to come out on March 1st, put it on March 1st, go through this process, hit pay. It will be in the system, and March 1st, it'll then get added to the library. If you want to backdate it, you can backdate it. The public release date is just for reference. Sometimes artists like to put, available in April 1st and give it to the radio stations a month beforehand, so they've got some exclusivity. Then the host can say, oh, it's out on public for you to pick up on April 1st. You'd fill out lyricist or composer. You'd add a distributor. If you have one, it's already tied to your account right away, a publisher, etc. The licenses are pretty interesting. You can stack them. About 1 in every 7 songs on the system is available for podcast. You have to give explicit permission to allow music to be played on radio. That's the broadcast license. It's built into this system. Once you use the system, it's agreed if you read all the fine small print on your upload. These are the other options that you can do. For radio, or for people who are making podcasts with music podcasts can only have music that is A, copyright free, or B, explicit permission has been given to use it in the podcast. This gives you that explicit permission, and it's the only system we're aware of that allows that to happen. You can also select if you want background music or whatnot to allow the stations to use like an instrumental or something in the background of an ad or a public service announcement. This just really helps them because they're always looking for background music, and it means you could get, all those other things as well. And then as for a compilation, what it means is the radio station itself might contact you and put you on a compilation. Some do monthly or quarterly compilations, and they want to showcase your side of things. Publisher, there's a question there. If you have a publisher, you can put that information in there, including their contact info if you want. If you don't, you can leave it blank, or you can write yourself if you're self-publishing. Not a problem. For MAPL is the way in which we classify Canadian content in Canada. This is up for discussion right now with the CRTC. We can talk about that later if we want to. But essentially, 2 of the 4 MAP or L needs to be checked off in order for it to be considered a Canadian content and go towards Canadian broadcast minimum requirements. If you don't meet those 2 of the 4 at the top, you can meet one of those conditions above, plus it was recorded, before 72 or instrumental or all those kind of things. It just helps you to become more CanCon compliant. We don't require the song to be Canadian content compliant, but we do require the song to be by a Canadian based out of a Canadian location. So you may do a remix, or you may do a cover song, and it makes it so it's not MAPL compliant. We still want to hear it, still put it on the system. But if you, for example, are a distro company and you're working with someone over in Europe or in the States, we don't want their content on the system at this time. Hopefully that will free up in 2022 when we launch internationally as well. So right now, just Canadian stuff. We just want to be showcasing Canadian artists, whether they're CanCon compliant or not. When all of this is filled out, you hit save. Oops, right, it wants my release type. And what will end up happening is it's going to take you to this third page where you're now adding individual songs. Songs are required to be English, or sorry, not English. Songs are required to be WAV or FLAC in nature. We won't accept MP3s. This is where we try to get our best quality type of content. You can upload as many songs as you want to the system. And just note that if you do upload them, you're going to have to go under the releases button and reorder them before you pay and do a process, or else they may be out of order. I just threw in 2 short background examples really quickly so you can see the upload process. and make sure that that everything goes well. And remember, if this doesn't work for you, you can do it manually by going under Release and Artist and Songs and making it. When all the songs have been uploaded, it asks you to make sure you get the titles right. This is where you're going to update the songs, Song 1 and Song 2 Remix. If you leave them as they are, when people go to search, you're going to get all the characters that you had on that song title left in there. So just be aware of that. You can add individual ISRC codes. You can add individual beat per minute codes as well. The last thing that's interesting on this option here is the ability to edit an individual song. I showed you the release upload. When all the information that you put on the release automatically gets applied to every song. But let's say you're doing an album and some of your songs are different genres. This is where you make those adjustments and change it. So I've reopened it. You can see all that information is there. The genres, I can now change the genres. This is a garage track. I can go under licensing and change them around. I can add some categorization to it. So I can put some moods. I can, if it's related to someone, if there's an original artist that originally performed it. You can add tags. There's a whole bunch of tags. So maybe you're, at the Regina Folk Festival, you can type that in and that'll stay on there. And as people do searches for it, they can discover it. This artist characteristics is something that we're really proud of. Many times the radio stations and the hosts are looking specifically to showcase underrepresented artists and communities. And this is your chance to self-disclose if you fit any of these characteristics. So if you are, for example, a Black Canadian, or FemCon is a woman, so a band or an individual that identifies as primarily women or as a women-only band. FrancoCon for French Canadian, Indigenous, and QueerCon for anybody who identifies as LGBTQ2+. Those are all things we encourage you to self-identify. Obviously, if you are not those, we really don't want you to identify that way. And there is a reporting mechanism in place which will allow people to say, well, you're obviously not all 5 of those things together as one. If you happen to not be, then they can be reported and we can make those adjustments or pull your content off. And then again, MAPL compliance may be different from song to song, so just be aware of that process there. When all of this is done, very simply, you select I don't need to bulk edit it. You just click the save button, and it will then take you to this completed song list. So I mentioned you can go through those steps one by one, or you can click the buttons on the top. So if I click releases, here's a copy of all of these different angles that we have, right? These are all the different releases that we've built and some examples and so on. So if I wanted to go back in, I can click on them and make those updates and adjustments to it. Same thing with the artist. So I said, if I wanted to see what Adam Nix was all about, this is a list of all of his songs. I can edit them individually. Or if I wanted to, I can edit the artist, and here's the basic artist information. So there's the name, any aliases, you can type in a biography, you can upload an artist album or photo, you can tell them the town that they're located in, and so on. So that's the releases section, that's the artist section, and then that's the songs section. When you're ready and have an album or a release that's ready to get processed, you have to go through our payment process system. So if I click songs, the first section on songs are all the ones that are live. These are out, available. You can do some minor edits to them. You can't add songs to a release or anything like that. It gets locked once you've done the payment. But if you've done spelling mistakes or need to reclassify, you should be able to make those updates. The songs awaiting payment are the songs that need to be paid before they go into the system. And that's how the release process works. We did February 24th. So if I click this open, I can see song 1, song 2. This is all the information. I'm going to process that song. And I'm also going to go ahead and process this release down here from Wooden Wives. When you've selected the songs you want to go to payment, you then click Select Payment at the top in green, and this will take you to your payment process. This is done through Stripe, third party. We don't manage any of your credit card information. Very safe, very secure. The first is your review page. So this is just confirming what you're paying for. You can see we've uploaded the Adam Nix Song 1, Song 2, $7 a song, total $14. We've got this Wooden Wives one, $7 a song, 7, total $21. This is your base information before anything else is applied. When you move to the second payment system, your billing details, you can see that automatically the price has changed. That is because the system has gone in and pulled that there's a referral code and added a 25% discount. This is the point where you would add your coupon in, which I will give you very shortly, and this whole thing will zero out to nothing. When it's completely zeroed out to nothing, you don't even have to put your billing information. You can click Complete Purchase, and it will push itself live to the system. If there is a payment, you put in your major credit cards, accept. It then pushes that song live, and it would show up on the dashboard under the artist's name, under their song list, which we can see there's been added to it, and it would show under the songs portion here as a list of the song alphabetically with the artists. If for some reason you've been uploading things and there's an error in that and it won't let you process, you're going to actually find it. There's a songs awaiting metadata, which means something's missing. And you can go ahead and fill that up, edit the songs, or delete them. So that's the upload process. The next and last step using the system here is your messaging and your outreach tab. The messages are things in which the broadcasters can contact you. Here's an example. I'm from the NCRA and I'd like to request an interview with this person. You can then reply back. So this is the communication tool that we've set up in place for the artist to get comments and questions and requests from the broadcaster, not the other way around. The other way around is under the Outreach tab. And when you click the Outreach tab, it's going to create a pop-up window. And it's going to take you to this pop-up window, and this is a list of all the radio stations that have sent us information on how they wish to receive content, and all the radio hosts who are either on a station or independent who have asked for the same information. So if I was to scroll through the system here is CFCR in Saskatoon. I click the drop-down list. Arnold is your contact name. Arnold is the music and promotions director, MD at cfrc.ca. He has no tracking hours. They accept all genres, emphasis on Canadian. They want you to send EPs, albums, vinyl, MP3, and the two systems they receive are through our Earshot Distro system and through email. So you could either take the email address, mail it to them, or you can go ahead and contact Arnold and say, hey, I'm a Saskatchewan-based artist. I just put up my brand new song on Earshot Distro. It's called this. And they'll have that information and be able to respond back to you for it. Any other information related to physical address or instructions and so on are highlighted here. You can also search. So if I'm a folk artist, I can hit folk in the search process here. And now I've got 12 stations, 8 stations that are interested in folk music. The section below here, very similar to the first one, but these are individual show names and their locations. So there's the Basement on CJTR in Regina. Darlene is your contact there. Canadian indie, hip-hop, electronic, folk, Americana. That's what they're looking for. Send it through Distro, send them an email. There's your contact point. So this is really important to follow up once you've made your upload. This is the way in which the communication system is set up for Canada and for Earshot Distro. Something people have been asking for. We're constantly trying to get more stations to submit to this and more hosts to submit to this. And it's right now, beyond going through station by station and finding those contact points one by one, this is easily your best option. and hopefully the stations themselves are using it. That essentially takes us to the end of the demonstration portion here of Earshot Distro. We'll come back if we have questions on it. I'm just going to go through the last little bits on the best practices here for working with stations, then open up the floor for questions. I mentioned if you're sending information to a radio station or a host, one of the best ways to do it is to click on and actually get your link to your song. So if you click that songs button and then click open the song, the URL in the top of your bar is exactly what they will see, and you can copy and paste it. So here's Too Late to the Party saying, hey, my new song is right here. Boom, there's the link. If I'm a radio host, this makes it so much easier for me. I can go, awesome, I'm logged in. I click that link. It's in front of me within a single click. A second one, I can play it. A third one, I've downloaded it, and I'm happy. So good practice to use. If you are sending an email, here's a couple of things we suggest you do, or sending in a CD still. Stations want downloads, not buy links. There's nothing more frustrating than getting something and it sends you to Bandcamp with a pay account. First of all, they can't use Bandcamp. Second of all, none of these stations have any money to be able to pay. So keep that in mind. Second, keep a basic one sheet information about, what you do, what's coming up, where the band is from, any history. Include a sounds like, not in the subject line, but in there as well. Any pronunciation for artists or songs. Again, if it's clean or lyrical advisory. And if you are sending MP3s because they've asked for it, make sure there's metadata in those files. If a user uploads to Distro and then the radio station decides they want to download an MP3, ours converts it and adds the metadata into it automatically based on what your uploads were. So you don't have to worry about that. I showed you the contact list already. So that's, again, available through your login. Please don't share that link. It is private, but it's designed for you. And then some of my last comments are what radio stations are looking for when you're doing outreach. Stations love interviews, hosts love interviews. Feel free to offer yourself to be able to do that. If you're touring, it's a great opportunity when we can do that again to contact the station and say, hey, I'm in town for a show later this week or tonight. Give them a week or two in advance notice and say, can I come in and do an interview? And you're going to get a lot of opportunities to get on the air at that point. You can host your own show. All of these stations are designed to provide training opportunities for people. I know a handful of artists that also host shows, and it's a great way to be able to not only promote what you're doing yourself, but beyond. If you want to, you can host Earshot Daily just for the fun of it. Earshot-daily.ca and contact AJ and he'll give you the info for it. And you go ahead, and if you've never hosted a show before, there's basic information. You can host a show. You can play all your music off of it if you uploaded it to Distro, and then it gets played on those 10 stations. So there's a fun option there. If you don't want to do a local station or you want to go beyond that, the Communityradio Exchange Ca is our system which allows finished radio shows to be syndicated. There's about 40 a month that are uploaded on there for different radio stations to share. So there's a blues and a jazz and a hip hop and electronic shows. And it's great for smaller radio stations that don't have those genres or happen to have space in their broadcasting time slot that they're looking to fill, and they can get something consistent and good quality. There's other wants that you get from stations. They love intros and liners. Hey, this is Barry. You're listening to CFRC, and this is my latest track. Enjoy. Simple, quick recording. Send that along to the music director as well. And, there's a good chance that they'll tag that in at the front of it. You can tag people on social media. There's no problem with that. Just once, maybe twice at most for a release or a song. If you're tagging them every week for something new, they're going to get a little annoyed with it, but it's a good way to get their attention. They like swag, t-shirts, stickers, posters. Just ask first, because some stations won't accept any of it or have a no swag policy. Others will say, send in everything you want. We'll give it away. We'll put it into part of our donation bin and stick them up on the walls. For those that have been into radio stations, you know that they love stickers. And there are stickers on doors and filing cabinets and all of that. And I could pivot the camera here in the office and you would see all of my filing cabinets are covered in them as well. My final recommendation is also a Google alert. Set one for yourself if you haven't. That way, if a station plays something and it is on their website that is crawlable, it will automatically tell you about all of that. That's the end of the distro display and showcase of what I have. Got some minutes for questions, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And if you have a question, I would prefer for you to either put it in the chat or to raise your hand and I'll acknowledge and you can unmute and chat away from there. So we'll start with Matthew as the first one with the hand up. Go ahead, Matthew. Yep. I did not post it yet. I am going to copy and paste and put it right in the chat here. I believe that will work. Hopefully that will show up. If not, I'll... Yep. Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of those things, right? Because they're trying to figure out where you fit in the MAPL system, right? So, like, there's the performed, there's the arranged part, there's the where it was produced, and then the lyrics side of things. And the older songs have some of these challenges. So when it was originally drafted, they put that in place. It's not really applicable to many people, but yeah, that's essentially where it looks at. And as I mentioned, the CRTC has a call out right now for the commercial broadcasters who are asking if that MAPL system is still correct or not. I don't know if any music groups are planning to submit. I know the NCRA is planning to submit to that process and make some recommendations. The main one being that the M counts for 2 instead of 1 point. And if you can still get 2 out of the 4, then you're considered Canadian, because the challenge is it's entirely made by Canadians. So let's say you have a duo and one is Canadian, one is not. That precludes you from getting that M ever. And we're saying that if they're completely Canadian, they should get 2 points for it. If they're a duo or a group and there's at least one Canadian, that should at least count you for 1. By the definition of what they said there, yes, but the problem is that the CRTC at some point agreed that they will let them go ahead and put up the production location. And that's where we get into this absolute huge mess, because let's say I'm a Canadian artist, I made this at home, I finished the whole thing, it has no lyrics, and I sent it to my engineer, and my engineer who's in the States mastered it. That drops the P as being Canadian, and it could, if you had, say, used a sample, or if there was a slight remix to it, it could also drop the M, and then suddenly your song, which by all means is really Canadian, is precluded. So there's some of those problems there as well, so keep that in mind. Yes. Okay. I will reshare the window again, and I will show you how you can actually make sure that that's done. So if I click on the release button, what it will do is it'll take me to all of the releases that I have. Today was the Feb 24th. If I click the edit button, you're going to see the opportunity to re-edit everything. Looks very familiar, right? And there's your upload. So I notice here that song 1 is switched with song 2. So if I flip those around and hit save order, now they're in the correct order. So sometimes they upload correctly, sometimes they don't. But remember, you need to do this before you process, because if you don't do this before you process, they're not going to be in the same order that you want them to be. That's correct. Yeah. And again, some people leave the numbers up there and they go ahead and do all of that as well. And it's left in there and it's a little messy in the viewpoint, but there's that there. I had a couple of questions noted in the chat. I'm going to get to that, and then I will come back to you in a second. Origin of spin. So there was a comment with regards to options for other visible minorities who are not Black. That is something that we have talked about specifically, and we are going to probably include that as one of the opportunities. We were having challenges with language to be able to figure what that was going to be. So it's probably better for us to sort of reconnect and make sure we get the correct language as well. But yes, that is something that I would like to be able to do. Chrissy says, can only new releases be distributed on the platform, or can we submit previous releases that some stations may not originally have? I highly encourage you to upload your back catalog. And the reason for this is that radio stations are often remembering something or wanting to go back and get it. Same with hosts and all of that as well. This is a database and a pool. When you upload, your content is on there. It remains on there unless you want to take it off. There's no fee or anything. And I'll give a good example of it. If we ever get a bagpipe show, it is hard to find Canadian bagpipe music. If there's a couple of artists that have released stuff and put them up on the system, you're going to be pretty sure that someone's looking for it is going to find it. So we highly encourage you to put your new releases, and if you can, put your back catalog. It's a great idea there. Let's see here very quickly. Hook and nail. How can we apply Assassin Music upload code for the back catalog uploads if you're already registered as a user? That is a good question. I am going to drop that code into the chat here, and you can then use the code at checkout in order to be able to get access to the free uploads there. I have to, of course, hand type it in because it doesn't want to copy and paste off my photo. So that code there is, again, the code. It's not the referral code when you sign up. It is the code at the end, at the payment, second part of the payment process. That's what you drop it in. Everything that you upload until March 31st this year will be free. It says there's a $300 cap in the grant. There is not. So if you've got 10 albums, please put them all up. That'd be great. And that's what we're trying to do there. Jeff asked, how does one set up a Google alert to tie it into Earshot stations? Will you notify to play? Is this on the dashboard? So the dashboard will tell you if someone has downloaded it or supported it or listened to it. It's not connected to the playing system. That's what we're hoping to be able to do in the future using like a Shazam style API, which will be monitoring all of the stations all of the time. And then every time a song is played, it pulls it out and puts it into their log. What I'm suggesting with the Google Alert is that just have your name anyways on Google Alert, because if something weird comes up, you can always catch it. But if you're a band, it's a great way to see if anything's been posted. Blogs where you've been referenced, or a lot of the time stations will put up their track lists on their websites, and this will actually then catch it if they're in the crawl space by Google and then alert you back saying it's there as well. Last Birds asked, since Earshot Distro is so new, is it be fully utilized by stations yet? The answer is no. We're actively trying to get more and more stations to use it. We've seen about a 2 or 3 times uptake since the start of this year, which is great because there was only about a dozen stations using it. We're seeing probably around 30 stations that have active use to it. And that's growing by a couple a week because we're actively working to onboard them, meaning that we have these training sessions for them so that they know how to use the system and making those changes and processes. So it's really in the process of doing those updates. So hopefully it will be fully utilized. There's been constant discussion around it. There was a bit of a stir last week, which got a lot of people going, well, maybe we should be using the system as well. So just note that. Origin of Spin, you had a question. Yep, I would put the where it says public release date, that's where it goes back to that day. And if you wanted to, you could put your release date on the system as well, back that far, but it's probably, I would just do it the day that you put it onto the system. So that first page, the messaging portion of it, is designed so that the radio stations or the hosts can contact you for any reason, right? Because we don't have your email or your contact information is not available in the system. The radio stations can't find it. It's just an easy way for them to contact you. Now, of course, if they want to reach you, I'm sure they're just going to do a quick Google search and find your page or your social media and whatnot. But we just made that as a quick communication tool. And I am quite sure that if they email you there, you get an email with the email you logged up with that says, hey, you've got a message. I don't know how often it's used. Just leaving it at that. I don't know how much that functionality is used, but they asked for it. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the contact list using the outreach button, which is found under messaging and outreach, is all of the radio stations that use the system that have given us that information. We've asked stations to do this so that we can compile it into one location and so that you as a host have a really easy searchable function. Without that sort of database that you're being given to use from us, you would have to go literally station by station. Most of the time people would go to the NCRA list or go to Earshot online, the charts, and then look for the stations they want to submit, find out what station is in that city, go to that website, research the website, find where they accept music submissions, and then submit through that submission process. We've just are doing our best to compile it all into one space for ease of use there. You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions? We're at the hour mark. I don't want to keep people too long, and I feel like I've been talking for quite a lot. I'm used to it, but I did retire my radio show a couple years ago. So, Matthew. I would put your release, your public, what it says public date. I would put that when that became available for the general public to get. It has nothing to do with whether or not it's available to be searched in our database. It's just for information. So if you did something in 1999, put 1999 in there, and then when the host is browsing, they're going to see, oh yeah, this isn't new. This is 20 years ago. But that's good. I should probably remove that. Good catch. Neela had asked a question in the chat. What kind of music download do we email in the contact? So if the radio station is asking for you to send in an email, I kind of outlined a few of the things that are best practices in there. They usually want a WAV file, but many will take MP3s. And that's, again, one of the reasons why we sort of put this all into one space, because we didn't want people to get involved to make it too difficult. And they will want a link that they can sort of do 1 click or 2 clicks, and then away you go. So if you have to, they don't like it being attached. And an MP3 attached takes up a lot of space on some of these groups. And you're not going to have any luck with that. But that would be what I would recommend is again, using this system or using the database and seeing exactly what they're looking for. Jeff, you had asked is it too late to change your release date if you don't put the actual on back catalog after it's gone live? I can't remember if that release date is locked or not. You could try it. I'd have to go back and double check. A lot of the time we locked the releases once they've been paid, so you can't add new music to the release. Some items could be edited and some couldn't. And I can't tell you off the top of my head what ones can and what can't. But you might be able to change it. If you do try to change it and it doesn't work, it's going to give you this thing that says 500. And you get bonus points for breaking the system, and we're attempting to try to make that fix. It's just going to take a couple months before we do our next update on the system. Origin of Spin, did you have another question?